Hi guys, I'm back for another video with my good old mate Mike Henlin. We're going to talk about the season opener and whether the threat from Max Verstappen is actually real or whether it was just a one-off. So thanks for coming on again, Mike.
No problem at all, Raz. It's always great to come on Raz on F1's channel. And I guess this is kind of like another unplanned F1 chat as we usually always do on this basis. You got a nice little buzz cut looking as sharp as what Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton did in the first race of the season.
Yes, I mean, I reckon, yeah, cheers for that, actually. You had to get the clippers out, didn't I? Because the
Absolutely, mate.
because the hairdressers are not open yet. Anyway, so I think that was quite a good race, wasn't it?
I thought it was a fantastic season opener. It's everything you kind of want from a season opener. You want to go into a season opener and go, if there were questions before the season, which it was for us, like were Mercedes not as quick as they were last year, and were Red Bull genuine threats? And I think we got that answer. I think we also got the answer that where the midfield were, whether it was going to be closer. Would Ferrari get better? They look initially out the blocks better. With McLaren, there were some fantastic battles in there. We had that kind of like world champions battle between Vettel, Kimi Räikkönen, and Alonso at some point through the midfield pack, which was quite funny to see. Guys who had been at the top of their game earlier on in their careers fighting around the kind of 9th, 10th, 11th spot. So it was an awesome race, mate. I enjoyed it. What about you?
I mean, I loved it. Although I have to say, I was feeling my heart sank when Perez broke down on the formation lap. I thought, like,
Oh yeah,
what the hell? What a start to his Red Bull career. But he was actually, I think he said afterwards, he was actually gonna get out the car. I don't know whether
wow.
you got that information, but I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that he was actually prepared to get out the car, and then his team actually told him no, bring it back to the pits, and then obviously he did amazingly well from last to fifth, I think it was, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
So, but I mean, we have to talk about the most hated driver or currently on the grid. I mean, Mazepin. I think he had the shortest debut race, lasting like something like 11 seconds or something it was.
Yeah, he certainly didn't have a long race, did he? In fairness, like you said, obviously the issues with Mazepin, there's a lot off the track, and he's rightfully received criticism, and people really disappointing in his actions off the track. On the track, I don't feel it's difficult for both him and Mick Schumacher, because that Haas car just looks awful, mate, doesn't it? It looks awful, and they're not going to bring any upgrades through the season. And it looked woeful to drive race one. That's as best as the Haas is going to get all season, and so that's worrying, isn't it? How bad they could be by the end of this season.
Yeah, I mean, on the Mazepin thing, on the Mazepin issue to start with, I mean, I I did a video about the certain video when it first came out, and I said, absolutely unacceptable.
Absolutely, mate. His behaviour was unacceptable.
But I mean, I personally knowingly didn't join the whole "We Say No to Mazepin" campaign because it's. I mean, the kid is 22, and I hope he has learned. I think it was a mistake. And I'm prepared to give him the benefits of the doubt, providing he doesn't do it again. But on the whole Haas thing, I think you're right. I think this is as good as they're gonna get. But I am worried for Mick Schumacher, to be honest. Not only because I'm a massive fan of his father, as you know, but can he show in the Haas what he can do? So I'm a bit worried about that, to be honest. I personally would have liked him to go to Alfa Romeo personally, because I think they're a lot better. They're a lot in a lot better shape than what Haas is at the minute. And I think he could have learned from either Kimi Räikkönen or Hülkenberg. I think, but I think he's going to struggle, and I think, as Tomo said in one of his videos, I think this season could be the end for Haas.
Depends. I think it could be the end of Haas as Haas. I think the team will be bought by someone, most likely Nikita Mazepin's dad. So I think, I'm not sure Gene Haas is. I mean, you've seen from the Drive to Survive clips with Haas from that, Gene, telling them that he's not going to put more money in. They're going to need to find money from sponsorship. Obviously, getting the German sponsor was a large proportion in getting Mick Schumacher into the car for them in that aspect. From there, it's a very tricky situation, that Haas won, because I agree, Alfa Romeo is better, but it's sad that we have not 10 strong teams on the grid. It's sad that Haas isn't competitive, and that even drivers like Giovinazzi, I think, are unfairly judged, because poor cars make people think drivers are worse. And George Russell has stood out, and it's clear the talent that he has, but it doesn't really necessarily put in perspective of things. If Mick Schumacher is going to be easier because he's up against a teammate in Nikita Mazepin, so his performances are always going to be looked a little bit more favourably upon, because his partner is always going to be looked down upon in that aspect. But George Russell was against Robert Kubica, who had been out of the car a long while. It doesn't denote from George Russell's achievement, but he's maybe an easier teammate than what Kimi Räikkönen is to Antonio Giovinazzi. So Giovinazzi, people initially think is a terrible driver, where he's better than that aspect. It is really difficult, like you said, Raz, for someone like Mick Schumacher to really stand out, really show what you can do in a Formula One car, because you don't have the machinery underneath you, that you have to be driving it constantly on the edge just to be slightly competitive, where guys further up the field can drive the car at about 80, 85, 90%, still driving close to the edge on that maximum performance, but they're far less likely to make mistakes because the car they're driving is better.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree with you. And just before we get on to continue with the season opener, do you think George Russell is getting frustrated or even fearing for his career?
I don't know fearing for his career, but frustrated definitely. And if I was George Russell, I would be frustrated because I think he's learned that there's always something you can learn, but that he's pretty much got to the stage where he's learned everything he can in a Williams car, and he now needs to be in a competitive car because he's now getting to the stage where he's in 3 seasons of being in a car that just isn't allowing him to fight for things like points, for podiums, or race wins. And you need to regularly be doing those things to improve and get better at those situations for him to, if he is going to in the future, be a world champion.
Yeah, but I've got a question for you. Do you actually think he's worried for his career in the fact that if Lewis Hamilton decides to hang up his helmet, yes, then he's got a genuine chance of getting into that seat. But if he doesn't and he continues, then I think Valtteri Bottas is going to stay on, because I think Valtteri Bottas is the preferred option for Lewis Hamilton, even though he hasn't openly said that. And the longer Lewis Hamilton stays in the Mercedes car, the longer George Russell is going to be frustrated and might even have to leave the Mercedes the Mercedes pool to actually forward his career.
I think the telling factor on that one will be how Valtteri Bottas does this season. Because if Valtteri Bottas is regularly being out-podiumed by, say, Sergio Perez, and Valtteri Bottas isn't doing his role in terms of getting in the way of Red Bull's strategy to kind of help Lewis Hamilton win the race, then there's going to be big issues. Then I think, we could see Valtteri Bottas going. If Sergio Perez suddenly is, we'll have a better idea, I think, 5 races down the line, how that's going to shape up. And I've been saying, I think in the next 5 races, Sergio Perez needs to podium 3 out of them. And for Valtteri Bottas to still be successful, I agree. I think Valtteri Bottas would need to at least podium in 3 out of the next 5 races as well to kind of help his teammate win the race.
Yeah, I think Sergio Perez is going to do that, but I'm not too sure whether Valtteri Bottas will do that, because they, as I said, I mean, where was Valtteri Bottas when Hamilton tried to keep he did manage to keep Max behind, but I think he did that by the skin of his teeth, to be honest. And I think Valtteri Bottas needs to be sort of between the two. A bit like what Red Bull is expected from Sergio Perez. I mean, I'm not being funny, but he started from the pit. Sergio Perez started from the pit lane and still managed to come fifth. And I think that's absolutely awesome. So
what I would say, interesting one for you to think here, mate, is I actually thought, as good as the race was, that was a massive failure for Red Bull weekend wise, on strategy wise, and Sergio Perez, impressive. Pit lane to fifth, definitely on there. But, not getting through on the qualifying into Q3, whether, partially from him not getting the lap in, partially from Red Bull not putting him on softs and kind of going on split strategy to go on that aspect. You've got to say Mercedes massively nailed them on strategy in terms of they nailed Hamilton's strategy, but also, although Valtteri Bottas, he didn't necessarily affect Max versus Lewis. Lewis had to fight that battle by himself. What Valtteri Bottas did do very well, and obviously on the radio, he had the one lap to get the fastest lap, and he did it. So he took the extra bonus point away from Max Verstappen, who had the fastest lap at that point. So what you have to say is, out the battle of the number twos this season, and I think obviously, some people might say that Valtteri Bottas or Checo are in the championship fight as well. For me, they're not in the championship fight. They're the number twos. At the battle of the number twos, Valtteri Bottas definitely came out on top that weekend ahead of Sergio Perez, because the Red Bull car was definitely the better car that weekend, and they came away with a second place and a fifth place instead of what Mercedes did with the, at this stage, lesser car of the two, first and third.
Yeah. I've got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How safe do you think Sergio Perez is in that Red Bull seat?
If he performs well, kind of safe. If he doesn't perform, very unsafe.
Let me put it to you another way. As you said, and as I was just about to say, I mean, he fluked the qualifying. That was absolutely bad. I mean, I actually thought that they made a mistake. Actually signing him. Actually, not because I thought, not because I think Sergio is a bad driver. I don't want any hate from any Sergio Perez fans in the comments, but what I mean is, Red Bull is very quick to sort of trigger happy. If a race doesn't go, if they think you're not delivering, you can be out straight away. So I thought it was a really bad start to his Red Bull career, actually, because not from what he did, but actually what the management think, because I think they expected him to be near Max Verstappen.
I mean, Sergio Perez drive by itself was fantastic. That was fantastic. And you know what? This electronics issue that he had going to the grid, it might have happened if he qualified P4 on softs. You never know. And then in that case, he was already going to have to go pit lane to fifth, and it was just, an issue goes from that front. But yeah, I think with someone who's as good on their tyres as Sergio Perez, and considering the Mercedes didn't go that much further on the mediums, obviously they didn't know that was going to happen and pan out in the race. But, having Sergio Perez on the softs and how good he is on tyre management, it wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world in his first qualifying session just to guarantee him getting through, putting him on the soft tyres. So I think Sergio Perez on a Sunday, we all know how good a driver is and how consistent he is. And he got a great performance on the Sunday out the car. It was the Saturday that I've never particularly thought that he was a good qualifier. I think even in his Force India days against someone like Hulkenberg, I think comfortably came out on top over the 3 years in qualifying. And then Ocon was there as well, and Lance Stroll wasn't a particularly good qualifier, so it made Perez look a little bit better on that front. But yeah, it wasn't awful what he did. I think it was only like 0.3 seconds off Max Verstappen, but the car needs to get into Q3 consistently. It can't go out in Q2. They can't. Red Bull can't afford that.
I mean, if they was happy with that, then they might as well kept Albon, in their slight side punch towards Albon, but I personally think Albon's career, there's no way back into the Red Bull seat.
Depends. I reckon that depends on the F2 juniors. If none of the Red Bull F2 juniors get their super license and act together on that front, I think Gasly's gone from AlphaTauri next year, and Albon could be a possibility to come back into that AlphaTauri seat. And if Yuki does really well and Perez doesn't, you could easily see Yuki Tsunoda go to Red Bull, and then Albon plus one of the F2 juniors come in there. I don't think it's completely dead in the water for Albon, because if it was, I think they would have just got rid of him.
That's another thing that I want your opinion on, because do you ever think, because I did a video about 3 days ago, Yuki versus Verstappen, and I said, I don't know whether you've seen it, but I said Red Bull are going to have a massive problem in the future, because if Yuki is as good as what everybody at Red Bull seems to think he is, then he's going to be, sooner or later, it's going to be in the Red Bull seat. But then I don't see Yuki. I think Yuki is not going to play second fiddle to Max Verstappen. So could it be that Max Verstappen for the first time in his career is going to be under pressure from Yuki Tsunoda?
Maybe. I like Yuki. I like Yuki a lot, but we gotta not get overhyped by him yet. He was still comfortably out qualified by Gasly, and Gasly had that issue at the start of the race. I think over the course of the season, we're going to see Pierre Gasly, come out on top in that battle between himself and Yuki Tsunoda. And if that's the case, then it is going to take time for Yuki Tsunoda. I think Yuki's very talented, very quick. He may be a challenge for Max Verstappen, but we're also talking about Max Verstappen as potentially, elite level driver. We're talking about Max Verstappen could be in those upper echelons of the Lewis Hamiltons of the world, of the Michael Schumachers of the world, of the Sennas, of the Prosts of the world, a multiple world champion. And I don't think I've seen enough from Yuki Tsunoda yet to suggest that he is of that quality yet.
Yeah, although Honda is absolutely hyping him, aren't they?
Well, absolutely. But obviously Honda are pulling out at the end of the year. So, that's less of an issue than what it would have been if Honda stayed in the sport.
How set in stone do you think that is?
That's an interesting question. I feel like it's set in stone, but obviously if they win the championship this year, maybe they would feel more inclined to, come long term into it.
Because I know that Christian Horner has already confirmed. Well, I think Ted Kravitz asked him. I don't know whether it was Ted Kravitz, but I think somebody asked Christian Horner how set in stone that pulling out is, and he said it's pretty set in stone. But I can see a situation where Honda is officially pulling out, and Red Bull is taking over the powertrains, like the engines. But I think behind the scenes, unofficially, I think there's still going to be some involvement from Honda with that Red Bull powertrain. Even though officially Red Bull is doing the powertrains. What do you think about that idea?
Interesting potential. I think there'll definitely be links in terms of the personnel and thing, but it doesn't, now that there's an engine freeze, and if Honda get it up, maybe it's come into play. It's an interesting one. I'm unsure. I think it's going to be very interesting to see Honda's perspective if Red Bull do manage to win the Constructors and Drivers' Championship, or at least one of those championships, how Honda will react to it, in that case.
Yeah, and so now we had, what was the next sort of worthy talking point from your point of view?
Probably Max versus Lewis. Is this going to be a title fight that goes down to the wire?
What do you think?
Don't know. That's the cop-out answer of sitting on the fence of going it's too early to see. But I feel it will be the closest championship fight since 2016. Whether that's last race or not, but I feel it will go down to the last couple of races at least.
Now, if you've seen my crazy predictions, including the three things that I said that is going to happen in the season. The last one was that Lewis Hamilton will not be an 8-time world champion. Now, from what we've seen in the first race, I think I must have been on some drugs or something when I made that prediction. Obviously, I don't take drugs. I mean, this was just a figure of speech. But if he carries on racing the way that he was racing Max, in the closing stages, I think there's no doubt that he's going to win an 8th world title. Whether or not the interesting part would be is the only way that could not happen, I believe, is if Lewis has got a DNF for some reason, or God forbid something happens to him like COVID or something, or and Valtteri Bottas isn't able to win the races, and Max Verstappen is. That, I mean, I think that's the only way that it can be taken. It can get away from Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think, with Lewis, he just showed all that experience. He showed what a good driver it is. Max hasn't ever been in a championship battle. Lewis, across his career, has been in, 2007, 2008, 2010, kind of, but not really 2012. So we'll exclude that one. 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So let's go 11. 11 times he's either been in a championship battle or secured a championship. Lewis very much knows how to do it. That compared to Max Verstappen, who has never been in a title fight, I feel like that experience from Lewis Hamilton, when the cars are as close as what they look like Max, you felt like to get in Lewis's head a bit, needed to win that race. To go, Red Bull are serious, and Max has won the race. By Max not winning that race and Lewis somehow coming out on top in that race, it's advantage Lewis Hamilton early doors at least.
Yeah, and I just want to mention something. You've got to consider. I mean, you just said he's been in 11 championship fights where he's either fought for the championship or where he's secured it. I think you missed something out there. I think you've got to consider the people he was up against as well. I mean, in his first year, I mean he was in the championship fight with your favorite driver, Fernando Alonso.
And Kimi Raikkonen, the eventual champion.
Yes, but Kimi, I mean, forgive me all the Kimi fans, but I think he was just there to pick up the pieces. No.
Like I always defend Kimi 2007. If you look at Kimi's performance in the second half of 2007, it's incredible. It's better than Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. He never gets the credit for it because everyone talks about Lewis and Fernando and Spygate and everything on that front. Kimi Raikkonen in that Ferrari in that second half of the season, in the second best car on the grid, was exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Kimi, but I think there was also benefited from the input that my favorite driver, Michael Schumacher, still had, because don't forget, Michael was an advisor for Ferrari from 2007 till 2009. So but coming back to the point I made, he was in numerous battles with Fernando Alonso. He was in a battle with Rosberg, even though I still think, again, I think not taking anything away from Rosberg, but I think that was a bit of luck as well.
Yeah, I mean, element of it. I mean, you can say that across, multiple championships, can't you? Some things just have to go your way. For Lewis Hamilton, some people could say 2008 was lucky
Yeah.
in
It's
that aspect. He was lucky that Glock was on the, wrong tires at the wrong time.
yeah.
And, he was literally one corner away from not being a world champion.
Yeah, I mean, there are still conspiracy theories flying about it on on the internet. Whether that but uh, we don't believe in conspiracy theories. I just want to make that clear. But coming back to our discussion, I think you're right. Lewis Hamilton has got a lot more experience when it comes to title fights than Verstappen has. And the next thing I want your opinion on is your favorite driver. I can see his a replica of his cap on your wall. What do you make of Fernando Alonso's performance?
You can't say too much from first performances, but Fernando Alonso looked like he hadn't been out of Formula One for 2 years. That Alpine looked like it had no right in getting into Q3, and somehow he managed to take advantage, obviously, of others' misfortune and get his, step up performance-wise into Q3. That was one of the best performances of the weekend, in my opinion, getting on that aspect. And then the race, it looks like, Honda have brought this big engine upgrade. Ferrari have brought a big engine upgrade. We knew Mercedes were leading the pack anyway. And it looks like the Renault engine has just slipped behind and to the bottom of the 4 engine manufacturers on the grid so far. So it's going to be a difficult season for him. And I thought he raced as well as he could do. I thought he had a very good return to the race in what's going to be a very challenging season, because the car is certainly not going to be as competitive as what the Renault was last season.
Yeah, I mean, do you think he's happy as to where he is car wise, or do you think he is sort of thinking already, have I made the right decision? Or
well, he didn't have any other options to come back to F1, so he has to make this decision work for him to have any chance of being successful on race wins on that aspect. So for Fernando Alonso, I think you look and you go, he was very open. He knew that they wouldn't be challenging for race wins, and well, it looks like they won't be challenging for podiums this season as well, with how the engines have come. But for 2022, I think if the car is off the pace again, that will be when he's disappointed. When he first came in, I think he was already instructing the team not to worry about 2021 and put all the efforts into nailing 2022. And I think that's the case. So I think he accepts that this year is almost a write-off, and then it's all about next year for Alpine.
See, I mean, I don't often disagree with you, but I disagree with. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I'm sticking to my to wins prediction. I reckon he's going to win 2 races this season.
Wow. In the carnage and chaos of a race.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, if there's anyone who's capable of that, I think both things we can agree on is those people doubting whether Fernando Alonso was past it. It'd be interesting to see, how the season develops. But he certainly doesn't look like he's lost any of his competitive edge in the time that he's been away from Formula One.
And I'm going to go one step further. I think he looks a lot more relaxed and not. I mean, I'm not saying Fernando is an aggressive character whatsoever, but when he was when he was 2006, when he was kind of in his first career before he retired, I think he was a lot more not aggressive, but a lot more how can I say this? A lot more sort of not harsh, but a lot more cold than what a lot more sort of lead me to it, and a lot more not as open. Whereas now I get the feeling, he's a lot more calmer and a lot more. He enjoys his racing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, don't forget he still has got a broken jaw.
Exactly.
And the next question is: are you surprised or disappointed, or what's your general consensus about Sebastian Vettel?
Again, sitting on the fence, but it is difficult after a first race. It's too early to call definitively, but that Aston Martin car, again, like Alpine and the Renault of last year, they both don't look as competitive as what they were. Obviously, the Racing Point last year was able to compete for podiums and, race win with Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
And, Lance Stroll had an opportunity to win a race at Monza last year that obviously Pierre Gasly went on to win. So it's difficult. It's a new team. They had a really bad testing, and I don't think many people have taken that into account for him. He has to adapt to the new type of car. It's not as easy, but first looks, it doesn't look great for Seb, does it?
Question for you. I asked you on. I agree with you on Aston Martin, but I asked you on Seb specifically.
Yep. I don't know. I don't know whether it's Seb. I think he doesn't look as confident as Sebastian of old.
Well, I mean, I think, and this is only me thinking it, I think he already knows that he's not there to win races.
Definitely not this season.
No, because I think if anyone can win races, I think it's Lance Stroll.
Very interesting.
And I think he was signed to help the team develop rather than fighting for championships and fighting for championships and podiums. I think that's down to Lance. That I think he was purely signed to help the team. You know, a bit like what Michael Schumacher was signed for when he joined Mercedes. I mean, openly they might not have said it, but I truly believe that was what he was signed for. You know, I think he was never signed for fighting for championship, because don't forget when Michael joined Mercedes, they was just coming from Braun, you know what I mean? So and the Braun team didn't have any cash to develop the next year's car, and then you know they, they weren't gonna be able to fight for championships. And I still maintain that was the big mistake that Mercedes did. Like, you know, they didn't openly communicate that with the public. You know, if they would have done that, they, people wouldn't have maybe given Schumi such a hard time. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
And I think that's kind of what's happening with Seb now.
I think it's a very interesting point, mate. Very interesting, and I can see that. Very interesting.
So, is the championship challenge real or not?
Yeah, I guess this is what this has all kind of come down to this season. It's hard to see Mercedes not shifting some sort of advantage throughout the rest of the season. But I'm going to stick my neck out on the line, and I'm going to go, yes, there is a championship battle to be had this year.
In that case, I'm going to join you and say, yes, there is a championship battle to be had this year. You know, let us know what you think in the comments down below. If you haven't already, do feel free to subscribe. And do you want to tell us a bit about your second channel, Indie Fanatics?
Oh, absolutely, Raz. So yeah, obviously got F1 Fanatics as well, but we also have our second channel, which is Indie Fanatics, which covers all things IndyCar. And the start of the IndyCar season actually is on the same race weekend as Imola. So after you've watched the Imola race in the UK, that's where you're based, you can get ready to watch the season opener in IndyCar at Barber Motorsports Park on the 18th of April. But yeah, we love IndyCar as well, so we're excited on that front. But no, Raz, thank you so much for having me on. And like Raz says, make sure you subscribe to Raz on F1. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. Come on, get this man over the line.
And I've got some really special lined up for when I finally do get past 1,000. So I'm thinking I'm never going to get there, but you guys can prove me wrong. So in the meantime, cheers for watching, guys. Bye-bye.
See you later, guys.